Hi, and welcome back to Women Making Magic. I'm your host, Natalie Ann Taggart, and I am so excited to be here with my friend today, Kelly Atwood. Kelly is a money mindset and sales strategy coach for the modern light worker, which, sounds amazing. So, welcome, Kelly.
Thank you, Natalie. I'm super excited to be here.
I'm so excited you're here. So we'll just dive in with the first question. What do you stand for in your life and business, and how did you discover that?
Okay. So first and foremost, I stand for this idea, this truth, really, I believe, that anybody can do and create anything that they want in their life. Nobody has more ability than another person. There might be outside circumstances that make people feel like they can't have a certain thing, whether it be a certain amount of money or a certain career or a certain lover or whatever. But I truly stand for, we've all got this ability to create anything that we want in our lives. And it really boils down to believing in yourself and also believing in the power of the universe. Lately, my message has changed a lot, though, because I think what happened for me, can I just dive into story right now?
Totally.
Okay,
Go
cool.
for it.
I'm about to go off on a tangent. What really happened for me when I really started to understand that I could create whatever I wanted, I was looking outside of myself for a direction on how to do that, which isn't a bad thing, right? But as an entrepreneur, I was looking to be led so much that I wasn't actually tapping in and listening to my own intuition and my own creative urges. And so I got the whole manifestation thing down, and I learned really how to create life on my own terms, but I wasn't really being super clear with myself, super honest with myself about what that actually was that I wanted to create. So I thought it was about money. I thought it was about, the business, the numbers, all of that. But really what it was just this deep longing to speak my truth and unleash my power, and just I've always been about having an impact, but really living it out full out. And so that's sort of what my business is moving into now, is just really supporting people to know that all the answers that they need are inside of them. And to make that a top priority as they're creating the lives that they want to create.
Totally. That's so beautiful. And I think that's such an important point of how we look outside of ourselves for validation or for answers, and that process of really trusting yourself and tapping in. So
yeah.
I'm curious, what was that like for you?
Terrifying. I know that this is probably a common thing for us women, right? It's and maybe I'm not speaking, I don't know, speaking for myself, and I'm sure people can relate. I've always been insecure, right? Always. Most people are to some degree. But it was always this constant need, not even to be validated, but to be liked and to be approved of, I remember growing up in school, and I was an only child growing up, so I think it's weird when you're an only child, you don't really get how to interact, you have to learn that social interaction at school, you know? And I always just remember always feeling out of place and being hypersensitive about what people were thinking about me, if I was accepted, was I being invited to things, that kind of a thing. And that really started to show up again in my business. And just in collaborations with people, I was hypersensitive to what people's perceptions of me were. And because of that, I was running my business from a place of partly what I knew worked, because I knew how to make money, I knew how to build it, but a lot of it was just trying to fit in, and so I was following things that other people were doing because I just wanted to not stand out and be a part of the pack.
Totally.
And then last year in 2016, I built a 6-figure business in my second full year in business, and I felt like I had the things that I wanted, and I still felt incomplete and insecure, and I felt like something was off, and I couldn't distinguish what it was. So I kept making all these like outside changes, like changing who I was spending time with, changing what coach I was working with. Like I was making all of these changes, and really things just kept getting worse and worse, so to speak.
No. Yeah.
You know, like things just continued to not work, but even more so. And I just had this like over time, just this startling revelation of like things aren't working because you're not being true to yourself, and like you're not being authentic with yourself. Not that you're lying or putting on some sort of a show, but you're not really being honest with yourself about like what you actually want to say to people and like what you actually want to create, you know? And so that was it. That was scary because I had to like grow a pair and like really make some choices and like get really clear and also let go of this need to be validated and approved of.
Yeah.
So that was scary. I get like a lump in my throat even thinking about it. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. I mean, it's all that throat chakra, speaking your truth.
Yeah.
Being accepted. And I think that story is so relatable. I know that's something that I've struggled with, and it's something that I hear a lot when we start out in business is like, oh, all these patterns and habits and ways of being that served us in high school or, middle school actually don't anymore in business. And so what an amazing opportunity to grow, but it is so scary.
Yeah. Terrifying. It's like all these different areas too, like all those things that you're like, oh, this wouldn't show up in my business. It does. It shows up in your business.
All of it. So, all of it.
Yeah.
And that's what I think that we can get really caught up in the like, okay, well, I need to learn how to make a funnel or run a sales call or whatever. And that personal work we want to avoid because it's uncomfortable, when really like that's where the magic happens.
Mm-hmm.
So what was that process like for you?
Yeah, well, gosh, what was that process like? I think it was actually a great opportunity for me to cultivate a better relationship with myself and believe in myself a little bit more. Because I noticed what I had been doing before was like taking other people's strategies and applying them and having them work, but also feeling like, well, it was something that somebody told me to do. Like it didn't feel very empowering, you know? And so letting myself off the hook and allowing myself to not do something just because the industry says I should or my coach said I should or whatever. And really, really just saying no, like setting those boundaries. That was what was really scary for me, but also it helped me to get aligned back with myself and to really just start to like believe in myself. And I think too, like when you're going through that reshuffling in your business, it can feel really scary. Usually you halt money making. Usually you have a fuck ton of followers leave. You ruffle feathers, you polarize people. Like that kind of breakdown has to happen in order for the rebirth. And I think that was really helpful too in the long run because it taught me a lot of resilience, you know? So
yeah, and doing it anyway, right? We can get so caught up in the people pleasing and the, oh my God, what are they going to think? And being able to just stand for yourself and what your message is. And if people want to leave, they can, and you'll attract new people too who resonate with what you're saying now.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting too? I noticed like the more clear I got about what my truth was, and the more clear I got about like allowing myself to fully unleash that, the less I cared about people leaving because it wasn't about them.
Yeah.
I mean, it is about them, but it wasn't about like, oh, does this resonate with you? Does this sit well? It was like, no, this is my truth. Like I can't not say it, you know? And I don't get triggered by that anymore. If somebody unsubscribes or leaves or whatever, I'm like, that's cool. Like, I'm not doing it for you to like me. So
yeah, totally.
That taught a lot of self-confidence as well, you know?
I love that. So on the tail end of this process, like, what does your life look like now? What's shifted?
Yeah. Well, okay.
Big question.
This is going to sound so weird. It feels like one giant life orgasm, to be honest. And not that life is like fucking perfect by any means, but like I have totally let go of this like struggle that I was kind of holding on to. Like I'm not concerned anymore. Like I have so much trust and faith in what I'm doing that like I'm not, I'll launch something and I'm not spending the entire day looking at my email waiting for the people to enroll. I'm not like I'm not staring at things anymore. I'm putting it out there. I know the value of it and it just feels easier and it feels more fun.
Yeah.
And like now if I take a particular strategy or a particular tactic or something, and if I put it into place, it's because I felt really drawn to it. It's not from this place of like, oh, so-and-so said I should do this. This is the way people are doing it,
Totally.
So it just feels a lot more fun and a lot more playful. And my business is growing as a result, obviously,
Yeah.
So
I think that's so amazing because we can hear that. It's something that's very easy to pay lip service to of like, yeah, like be yourself and make more money, but like that doesn't take into account the hard personal work that it takes to get there. Mm-hmm. But then once you're on that other side, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine that struggle or I can, but I'm through it.
Yeah, I envision it like you can either put on this like I remember when I was backpacking through Europe, I like stuffed 3 months of stuff into this giant like hiking backpack thing,
Yeah.
It was kind of like that scene from Wild where she's like trying to put the backpack
like
on.
falling over.
Yeah. Like that was me like every day in Europe. And it was like a metaphor of like letting go of that backpack. Like it's just, you just let go of all that weight that you were carrying around unnecessarily that you like didn't even need it, And sometimes I'll notice, like, I'll feel that pull and I'll, like, feel myself putting on that metaphorical backpack and then I'm like, oh, hell no, I'm not going there.
Yeah.
It's too heavy.
It's so funny you mention that because I've been having that experience, too, of, like, noticing my brain wanting to go down those old stories and being like, whoa, we're not, like, why are you doing that? I don't know. It's really interesting when you're able to distinguish this isn't a thing that I have to follow anymore or a pattern that I have to be stuck in. So it's so powerful.
Yeah, and noticing that it's really comfortable to go there, right? It's like really comfy.
Drama and worry, it's like gives you something to do, I guess. But it's not worth it.
No, it's a distraction.
Exactly.
It's like such a default distraction from like what we're really here to do,
Totally. So powerful. So you have such a powerful and inspiring money story, and I know it's something that you focus on in your business, you work a lot around. Can you tell us about what that journey has been like?
Yeah. Oh, my money story.
Yes.
It's like a love saga that continues. Yeah, I mean, I grew up like, I used to say I grew up in a poor family, and now I can see that that's like, I don't know. I prefer not to say that anymore because I know that there are a lot of people that were worse off than I was by far, and I don't want to like be disrespectful, So like I grew up, we were just struggling for money. Like normal scenarios were to have like utilities shut off and to like have to eat at McDonald's every night because we couldn't afford groceries 1 week, like just shit like that. And my parents both worked their asses off to like make ends meet. They really worked hard. My parents were very hard workers, and as much as I got that story of like you have to work hard to make money, I did pick that up, but I also I feel got an incredible work ethic from that experience. Like I actually enjoy going to work, whatever that looks like,
Yeah.
But yeah, it was always a struggle, and there was always this like looming sense of panic in our household, like panic about the car getting repossessed, panic about the electricity getting shut off, panic about scraping together $100 so that I could get school clothes. It was just, I learned from that experience that money is evil. I the way that we viewed people with money was that they were greedy and they were like those people, whatever that means. And just, I learned not to trust life, and I learned to be a fighter, like a warrior, and it was just like a really disempowering thing. And so so I grew up, right away. Like I got my first job when I was like 13. I worked on a farm, which was really fun. But I just started hustling like right at 13 and started working and moved into the food and wine industry. And I worked, I would always work like 80 hours a week and like really made it my mission in life to like work my ass off like my parents did, just so I could survive. And so when I became a coach, when I got into running my own business, all of that stuff just came up to the surface like hardcore, and I was struggling really badly. I was being really stubborn. I could have easily gone and like gotten a restaurant job. But I was kind of like that ride or die, like I'm going to make this work kind of thing. But the first year and a half of my business, I like paid rent late all the time. My credit cards were maxed out. I was late on payments. It was a money nightmare. And there were nights I couldn't afford to eat dinner. And I was so prideful too. Like I definitely could have gotten a job. I probably could have borrowed money from a friend, and I was like, I'm not doing that, So yeah, it was really hard. And then I made a commitment to change, well, first of all, before that even happened, you're a beginning coach, you're online, you're seeing all these high level coaches that are like jet setting around the world. And at first it would piss me off.
Like overnight. Yeah.
Yeah. At first it would piss me off. And really, if I look really deeply into that, I was just jealous, but I didn't believe it to be true because it was so far outside of anything I had ever experienced. And then I started entertaining the fact of like, well, maybe this is possible. It was like this slow process into like, not only believing that it was possible, but then believing that I could have it and then knowing I could have it. Mm-hmm. And then like from that place, I was like, okay, well, what do I need to do to shift my relationship with money? And that's when I started like really diving into the law of attraction. I hired a coach that focused on money mindset. Like I really just started committing, and I also committed to learning how to sell in my business because I think that was another part of it. I was like afraid to sell anything. I had this really disempowering story around what it means to sell stuff. I thought it was like slimy and icky, and
yeah, which is so common.
Yeah. It's sad actually, like how common it is. But yeah, I just made a decision. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like I'm worth more than this, and this is self-sabotage at its worst. Like eating frozen corn kernels because that's all you have, and you're like, come on, like treat yourself a little bit better than that, So yeah, I just like committed and I went all in, and I made a decision to change it, to turn it around, and it happened rather quickly. Mm-hmm. And yeah, my process with money, well, here's what happened too, right? Like, so I made a fuck ton of money, and then I felt really uncomfortable with that level of money, that level of wealth. And that was a whole nother process I had to go through because it felt so foreign to me, and I felt like, who am I to make this money? And so I would start sabotaging. Mm-hmm. And I would see that reflected everywhere. I would lose money. I would, like, somebody asked for a refund. Like, this stuff would start happening that was, like, reflecting my inner beliefs,
Conflict, yeah.
Or I would have, like, a ton of money in my account, and I'd be like, I can't have this in here. I have to buy something. We have to go on a $5,000 vacation because I can't have this money in here. Like, I don't deserve this,
Totally.
So that was my second sort of process. And then I went into, like, a feast or famine cycle. And so, like, initially I learned how to make more money, and that was, like, the biggest hurdle for me to get over. But then it was, like, really being with that money was even more of the work.
Yeah. 100%.
And yeah, and now I feel like really comfortable with it. Like I'm going to this next level, and there's a ton of resistance around the next level, but now I feel like way more empowered with my relationship with money. It does not make me uncomfortable to like have a really big day or like have money just sitting in my account. It's like that stuff does come up, and I'm able to work through it like in the moment, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm feeling like me and money, we're just definitely in a more healthy relationship at this point.
It's so good. I love hearing you talk about money. It's like just such an amazing story and so inspiring. And I think there was something you said in there that is so powerful of believing that it's possible, but then believing that it's possible for you, and then receiving it, right? It's like we can't just go out and say, okay, I'm gonna write this number on my notebook and yay, but it's really a deep inner process.
Yeah, excuse me. Well, I think part of me really, actually part of this last sort of growth edge around like being with a lot of money, and that's relative, right? Like a lot of money to me might not be what a lot of money is to someone else listening, but
sure. But it's your experience.
Yeah. So like being with that, oh crap, I totally forgot what I was gonna say.
That's okay. Something about the inner process of being with money.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, oh, I do remember. Okay. I was thinking about how for a while I thought it was like a greedy, selfish thing to desire to be wealthy. And I worked through that many times. But then I had this realization of like, the more wealthy you become, the more, I mean, this sounds so simple, but like the more wealthy you become, the more money you're able to put back into the flow. And it's so like, you know, I was thinking about how my parents always used to say, like, if I wanted something extravagant, it would be like, that's wasteful. But it's like, it's not wasteful. Like, you're literally contributing back into the economy, into society. You're giving back. You're spending money on something that's going to feed a family somewhere, you know? Like, even if it does have to go through this whole, like, corporate chain of events, whatever. Yeah, it's like abundance is good for everybody, you know? So that was like a really big mindset shift that when that happened, I was like, oh, okay, like this isn't just about me. This is about elevating the collective consciousness.
Yeah. Whoa.
So.
Powerful.
Yeah.
That's like, and I think that's such an important shift because we can identify, money is so emotional, right? And we identify with it so strongly. We create all these disempowering stories, and when you can kind of zoom out and say, money is just an energy exchange, or, you know, the more I have, the more I can give, and, you know, really whatever works for you. I find just getting that little bit of distance from it helps to change the whole dynamic.
Yeah. And I think what really helped me too is never losing sight of my desire, because I have this desire to make a lot of money. So never losing sight, never taking my eyes off of that prize, so to speak, but making it about something bigger than the money, because the money is just an afterthought. The money is just a reflection, right?
Totally.
For a while, I was making it just about the money. Like, I was so hyper-focused on the money, and obviously, like, I came from this background of never having any, so it was like an obsession, you know? But when I realized that the money was like a natural, it's like a knee-jerk reaction to like living out your purpose and being high vibe and, you know, just being in a state of gratitude and belief and faith and all that stuff. It was like, it got so much easier. I was like, oh, I don't have to worry about the money.
Yeah.
I can just focus on my message and that's all I have to do. Like, oh my God, you know.
What?
I know. It's that easy? What? But, I mean, obviously it's not that easy. You have to clear up your limiting beliefs, too.
Of course, yeah. But it's it's that idea of, like, grippy, like, hyper-focused obsession with money and, like, but then you're, like, constricting the flow. So when you get in that creation of, like, okay, I'm just going to do what I'm being guided to do and trust that it's going to come back to me, it's so much easier. Yeah.
Money will flow to you when you don't worry about it. Which is it's so hard to hear that. I know there's got to be someone listening to this that's like,
I roll.
Fuck you. Yeah, like, and I get it. Like, I've been in that place many times where like my card's been declined or I've got a stack of bills I have no idea how to pay. Like, you feel like I've literally been in the most panicked situations with money where you feel like the wall is going to literally cave in on you and you're like, oh my God. And it like if people said that to me while I was in that situation, I'd be like so pissed, you know?
Yeah.
But it's true. It's like as soon as you back off of it, you give it the space to actually just, come to you. And I think that's why so many people are stuck in the patterns of lack and scarcity, because it's hard to trust that works. It's hard to sit there and be like, look at all these bills and be like, I'm not going to worry about it,
Yeah. And so this actually brings me to a really great question. So you mentioned the law of attraction, and you and I talk a lot about the universe and manifesting, and I'm curious what role spirituality has played in all of this for you and what you've learned, over the course of your journey. Also, your hair is so long.
Oh, I know. I need to get it cut.
It looks amazing.
I have not gotten my hair cut. Sorry, viewers. But I have not gotten my hair cut since our retreat in D.C. last year. It was like a year
ago today. I just saw on Facebook.
Oh, yeah. That's so
weird.
Funny.
But yeah. Anyway, it looks beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, spirituality. I love that you asked that question, because it's a question I've been kind of like thinking about a lot lately. I never grew up in any sort of religious setting whatsoever. And I never really had like a relationship with spirit, really, until my mom passed away. Because obviously that's some like really crazy spiritual shit that happens with that process. And just going into a little bit of story here, like, I found Gabby Bernstein like a month before my mom passed away. And I don't even remember who it was, but somebody handed me a copy of Spirit Junkie, and I was like, eh. And then I was like opening it up like literally the month before my mom passed away, just like devouring every page. It was like my first real dive into like spirit and spirituality. And so for me, spirituality has always been about faith and like trust and knowing that, for me, it's about the universe and that we live in a really loving, kind universe. And allowing myself to trust in that has been really huge for me, because like I was sharing growing up, besides money struggle, we just, I experienced a lot of death as a child. Like all my circumstances, when you're a kid, you're like a sponge to whatever's going on in your environment. So the messages I was picking up was that life was not safe, and it was a struggle, and it was hard, and people die and people get sick, and it was just so diseased in so many ways. And it was ironic that when my mom was on her deathbed, I was reading this book that was opening up my eyes to the fact that it's actually the opposite. The universe is like the most beautiful, magical place. It's like conspiring for our highest good. And it was interesting to me to like feel into that and really feel it like as my mom was dying. It was so weird, because I wanted to be so mad about it, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
And so I think like that whole experience has really it really laid the foundation, I think, for like my belief in the law of attraction and just knowing that there's this source energy, there's like this infinite wisdom out there that we can't necessarily see, but we can feel it. I mean, I know I'm skipping ahead to one of the questions that you'd like to ask at the end, but like,
okay.
This is what magic is. It's like what happens when we surrender and we trust and we have faith and we allow ourselves to be carried by life and carried by source and spirit. It's like magic happens,
Totally.
So
yeah, 100%. So for listeners or viewers who kind of aren't that familiar with law of attraction or maybe just getting into this, can you give us a quick overview?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's going to have a slightly different response to like what is the law of attraction. The way that I look at it at this layer of where I'm at in my studying of it is that our thoughts become things, right? Not to get too woo, but I believe that we all share this collective consciousness. We're all tapped into source energy, And so, whatever we think, I believe our brains are sort of programmed into this like higher sort of mega brain.
Yeah.
And like whatever we think, that's why, like, how can you explain you're thinking about somebody all day long that you haven't talked to in 5 years and then they call you? Like, how can you explain that,
You can't.
So, yeah, so I think our thoughts are like really, really, really powerful. And I think that we can think things into existence, but I don't think it's necessarily just about the thinking. I think it's a lot to do with our vibrational field of energy, and our thoughts create our feelings, which creates our energetic vibrations. And so, I believe, and science proves that we're all a big field of energy, and we're magnetizing things to us and repelling other things away from us. And our thoughts play a really big role in that, because they're just kind of like the initial sparks. It's like the key turning in the ignition. Like, the key is your thoughts. It like starts the ignition. And so, yeah, and it's interesting. It's like I've been studying the law of attraction for like, I don't know, 3 years now maybe. And it seems like so fluffy when you're like reading about it and hearing about it. It's hard to like really get behind it.
Yeah.
But then you'll give it a shot and you'll try it out, and then you'll like see it happen instantaneously, and you're like, oh my God.
Whoa. Yeah.
Yeah, like this is actually happening. But I think also too, the important thing to realize about manifestation and the law of attraction is that you're already doing it. Like, it's not about learning how to apply the law of attraction. You're already applying it. It's just like waking up to it, becoming aware of how the system works and how your thoughts are implanting or imprinting on your energy field, which is then creating actions and all that kind of
reactions and yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's like, I try to approach it from a scientific standpoint when I'm learning about it, because that's how my brain sort of latches onto things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think for anyone who's like new to it, I think the very first thing is to just notice how you're already creating your life, how everything that's in front of you, and not to like shame or blame, right?
No, yeah.
I think being responsible for your life is just about being responsible, but just noticing, if you look in the mirror and every time you tell yourself, I feel so fat, like you're not losing weight that way, because you're constantly thinking I'm fat, I'm fat, I'm fat, Same thing with your bank account. If you're having a hard time with it and you're constantly walking around thinking, oh my God, I'm so broke, I'm so broke, I'm so broke, I'm so broke. Like, you're recreating it in every moment.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think just the very first step to anybody who's like new to the law of attraction would just be to pay attention to your thoughts. Because I think that's part of it too, is a lot of us don't even hear our own thoughts. We're not even aware of them, because they're just so habitual,
Totally. That's what was coming to me as you were talking, is again, that little bit of space really can make such a difference of like questioning. I know on my money journey, it was very much that experience of like, oh my God, I'm not, like, I have all the things that I'm afraid of. Like, everything that I've been afraid of with my money has come to pass. So like, Why don't I just give this other way a shot? Because what do I have to lose, And just that one choice shifted everything. And there was a lot of work that came from that, but that was the turning point. And so I think that's really powerful, what you said around you're already creating it. So you might as well like become conscious to the process and get intentional.
Yeah. Yeah. And I recently wrote a blog post about this. So I might be like repeating this to you, but I think I posted on social media. If you've never realized that before and you have that moment of like, oh my God, I created this, it can get really sad for a few days, few hours, where you're like grieving. You're like, oh my God, I did this to myself. Like, I'm responsible for this. It can be a really sad place. But then after, if you really allow yourself to feel that and grieve that, it's like you get to this place of like, you feel like a little kid in a candy store. You're like, oh my God, like I have all this free, it's like this liberation. Like, I'm free it's like you're holding a blank canvas with a paintbrush and you get to paint it any way you want it.
Totally.
And it's the most liberating feeling. It's so awesome.
Right. It's like, oh my God, like, well, what do I want to create, Yeah. So so cool. Powerful. So I think this is it's such an important conversation because women, you and I like focus on our work with women. The show's called Women Making Magic. I find women in particular can have a squirrely relationship with money or, just extra baggage around it. So I'm curious what your experience has been in that regard.
Yeah. Well, I think too, I was like very vocal about my success with my money. I was very, like, I'm not shy to like share numbers. I don't think there's anything weird about that. My boyfriend is not. We have opposing views about that. But like, I wasn't shy about it. And I think a lot of people think that it's like, I'm going to use my pen, that it's like bottom of the barrel success. And then it's just like this trajectory that just goes straight up. But the reality is it was like up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down.
Yeah, sure.
Every time I've wanted to create a new goal, like next month I'm going for $50,000 in my business, which holy shit, feels so scary. And I just decided that like yesterday, and already like all my resistance is coming up, all my like fears and doubts. I already had like this weird thing happen with a bill, and I was like, oh, here we go.
The universe is testing you.
Yeah. But I think it's cool. I think part of it is we can hold ourselves to this really high standard. And I see this actually happen a lot with money coaches. We feel like we have to be perfect with our money because we're a money coach. Sure. And yeah, you have to be in process on your money shit. Obviously, you have to be working through it. But like, it's not going to be this straight. I mean, it might be for some people, but most likely it's not going to be the like straight trajectory. And so to really allow yourself to have those speed bumps, and to be squirrely, right? And know that that's actually like part of what's going to help you grow and expand even more, is to have those little obstacles in there, or giant breakdowns, whatever. I've read so many articles about people that like made $7 million in their business, and then they went bankrupt, and then they made another 7 million, and then they went bankrupt. And I think it's just like doing the work, but also allowing yourself to be imperfect with it.
Yeah.
Is key, and not just for money, but in any area. And don't be afraid to talk about that. Don't be afraid to, and this is like one of the things I was thinking about before you and I got on the phone, is like, I wasn't vocal about that part. Yeah. Like I was never like, hey, I mean, maybe once or twice, but it wasn't a huge part of my message to be like, hey, I'm a money coach that like has money hiccups all the fucking time, And so I think like not being afraid to share those struggles and to share those imperfections, and know that it doesn't make you any less of an expert or whatever.
A
it doesn't
leader,
make you
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think if you're a money coach, or I see this a lot with like health coaches that are like having health issues. And you want to set this exemplary model for everyone, which of course you want to do that. But then if something happens, instead of using it as a learning lesson, you go into hiding, you go into shame, you go into beating yourself up. And like, if somebody expects you to be perfect, they're probably not your person, like, see ya. But
well, they probably have their own perfectionism, whatever issues, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that's a trend we're seeing in personal development in general, is like, I actually don't trust someone who seems like they have all their shit together, because A, I know that's not real. And B, like, I myself am very open kind of with my challenges and breakdowns and whatever. And so those are the kinds of people I want in the show, in my world, like, just around me. So I think it's really an important conversation to just be honest. It can be really scary.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, and then I think about like all the posts that I've read on social media by people that I admire, with them sharing like their innermost vulnerabilities and sharing the pieces that are hard for them. And I'm like, thank you. Like, I know I'm okay where I'm at because you just shared that, because I view you as the thing that I'm aiming towards, right?
Totally.
And to know that like there's no destination, like even when you are like that high level, whoever it is that you admire, like there's challenges at that level too. There's always going to be something that's not working, or that could use a little bit dusting off, whatever,
Totally. It's just life. It's just life. Oh,
Yeah.
so amazing.
But we have to stop hiding. We have to stop. And I'm saying this from someone who hides. Like, I'm a hider because I'm like, I don't want anybody to see me like in my weak place, you know. And I think a lot of that was from my upbringing. Like, you're a fighter, you're a warrior. Like,
keep
show
it
me
together.
strong.
Yeah.
Keep it together. But yeah, I just think like for your community, for your following, and for yourself, like that's a lot of energy to be holding inside. Like, you've got to let it out. You've got to allow yourself to be seen and allow yourself to be supported, you know?
100%. And I think it just, in my experience, that's what authentic leadership really is, because you're modeling that for everyone else around you. So that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Kelly, thank you so much. This has been such a fun conversation.
Thank you.
So we touched on it briefly, but the question I ask everyone who comes on this show is, what does making magic mean to you?
Oh, yeah. I want to answer this like in like a poetic way, but
you're always
poetic. I don't know. Like, making magic to me, what's coming up for me when you ask that question is like, it's just surrendering. It's like literally leaning back. It's almost like giving up, but not giving up. Like, you're in Venice now. Have you gone surfing yet?
No, but it's like this summer it's happening. But yeah.
Yeah, so like the first time you get pummeled by a wave and you're underneath the water and you're like, ah! And you feel like you don't know where up is and you're freaking out. I feel like that's such a great metaphor for life. Like, so many times we don't know which way is up and we panic and we start flailing. And to me, making magic is like literally just letting go and allowing up to find you. And like allowing yourself to be led, allowing yourself to be guided by your own, by the, you know, the source energy that's inside of you, but also by your own heart, by your own intuition, by your own, we all have this like pull inside of us, like Rumi talks about, you know.
Yeah.
We have this deep inner pull, and we're working so hard, most of us, every single day to control things and make the lists and, you know, just say the right things and cross our T's and dot our I's, that we ignore that pull. And the pull is what's going to lead us to where we want to go. And I think that's the magic. It's just trusting and surrendering into that.
So beautiful. Thank you so much, Kelly. This
has been
so fun. So if listeners want to get more of your wisdom online, where should they go?
My website, kellyatwood.com. I also have a free Facebook group called High Vibe Manifestation. I try to do a lot of trainings in there around, like, well, how do I work with this whole universal law thing, and how do I sell my stuff, and all that kind of thing. So
amazing. And you also have Unlock Your Money Making Potential mini course.
Yes, okay. I actually just launched that yesterday. It's a free 5-day video training.
Yeah!
Thank you for reminding me.
You're welcome.
That's on my website. It's like right on the homepage, so anybody who wants it can just go click on it.
Cool. That link will be in the show notes.
Cool. Amazing. Thanks, Natalie.
Thank you, Kelly, so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.